Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We are back here on YouTube and we have another episode of the K2N blog. Shout out to my buddy Chad for supplying me with this really cool Maui to Molokai race jersey. I'm also wearing another jersey within the race footage at the end of the video. These are hand-me-downs from JP, who's in Clearwater, and he attended the race. I haven't done the event before, but I'm channeling some of the mana from the jersey in the race footage at the end of the video. So we hosted a race here in Hernando called the Blueberry Slide. We did a scouting report of that, I think 2 episodes ago, going over that course. By Florida standards, it was incredibly cold. Cold is such a funny and divisive thing because we had lower attendance at the event from years past, cited by people saying that it was too cold, I can't go out. Then there are paddlers that are in more extreme conditions that are very condescending the moment that you mention what the temperature in question is. So at a blazing 45 degrees, it was enough to bar off probably about 30% of the potential participants at our event. So this race is part of the Florida Competition Paddlers Association. It is completely free. I don't make a penny. So I'm not really held up whether we have 1 participant or 1,000 participants. For me and my viewpoint, it's nice having more people just to facilitate that and grow the sport more. But from like a monetary standpoint, it really doesn't matter if nobody shows up. I can actually just go home early. So in that context, it was nice to facilitate the people that did want to race and did want to go into the very chilling 45-degree environment. So before we get into that, I wanted to talk about this week's talking point, which is building up your weaknesses. I got a message from one of my club members and they commented saying that I can't say that you aren't good at paddling upwind or paddling in the cold anymore. So my race performance on Saturday was pretty good, and there was a very stiff wind, and I typically suffer in these upwind situations, and I have performances in the past where it is cold enough where my hands stop working, unable to really warm up adequately, and so I've had very poor cold performances in the past. And so I want to talk about some of the transition and the changes that have gone into making a weakness for me in the past into a strength, and how you should approach your training methodology in order to identify these weaknesses and then build on them. The entire point of training is to build up on your weaknesses. If you continuously stack up on the things that you are strong at, it will always leave you short when you are in a situation that spotlights your inherent weaknesses. So becoming a complete athlete is simply identifying all of the different ideas that go into a successful paddler and trying to build and elaborate on each of these ideas. The more that you train, the easier it is to identify some of these potential weaknesses and then structure a workout plan that allows you to build on these ideas. If you're not good at using your legs, if you're not very strong with your upper body, if you're not good at paddling upwind, if you are susceptible to the cold, if you overheat easily, if you're not good at paddling at a high stroke rate, if you cannot physically paddle at a low, strong stroke rate, there's an infinite amount of ideas that you can pinpoint and try to structure around to increase your overall ability. So for me, with upwind paddling especially, part of it is a small physiological change that has made it a little bit more bearable in the last year. Overall, I'm a pretty small paddler, right? So I'm only 5'6", but in years past, I have been as light as 129 pounds, right? And steadily over time, I'm starting to gain more and more weight. Most of it is not like body fat percentage, right? But I'm getting a little bit more muscular as the years go on, right? So right now, I'm much closer to 150 pounds. When looking at the wind influencing a paddler, right? A great analogy is to crumple up a paper ball and to have a rock the same size as the paper ball. Put both of them on the ground and turn on a leaf blower and see which one of them moves. And you can also elaborate on this analogy by saying that a larger paddler is taller, and so they build up more wind resistance, right? So you can pick a larger rock to put down, which would have more surface area for the leaf blower to push on, right? So you pick a larger rock and then a paper ball that is smaller, and you put it on the ground and use the leaf blower. What you're gonna find is that the wind influences the lighter object more. And so this is a give and a take relationship. When you're going upwind, you are being slowed more proportionally to the rock that is on the ground. But the advantage now lies in if you are being pushed by the wind, the paper ball is going to move in the direction that you want it to much faster than the rock. But within course racing, there is one more paradigm that leads to the lighter object being at a disadvantage to the heavier one. You spend less time going faster and you spend more time going slower. So what this means is when you add up these split averages, they do not even out in your benefit. If you go 1 mile in 10 minutes and you go another mile in 9 minutes, there is 1 full minute of you paddling slower than you paddling fast. And this is the disparity that you will find by being a light paddler, is you will go upwind much slower and you will stay in that slow state for longer. And then as you go downwind, you are going to go faster, but you will spend less time going faster. So in course racing, if you're heavier and you're less affected by these conditions and can run more even splits, you spend the same amount of time running in all conditions, right? So again, it's very even. You don't have a huge disadvantage upwind, but now you don't have a huge advantage going downwind, but the split times are the same. You only spent 9 minutes going up and 9 minutes coming back. It's very even. And so for me, when I'm super light, this sucks, right? Paddling upwind and having other paddlers that are less affected by these conditions for that duration, you can really feel it, right? And so one of the big things that I've changed, besides just being a little bit heavier and being slightly less affected by this, is by paddling a little bit faster as I'm in these upwind situations. Planning a strategy to allow more allocation of energy to this environment, and then paddling in a way that facilitates being less affected by the wind has been tremendous in having race results that are not so punished by having conditions. And the course on Saturday is a great example. There was a huge headwind, and then as we got into the canals, which is supposed to be protected by the wind, there's still a lot of wind. So there's a lot of miles that are being hindered by this upwind. And a past version of me would have gone slower and slower and slower, and then you have this mental defeat, oh, I don't want to push anymore, and it all just kind of spirals into a poor performance. Understanding this and having a better strategy to face these ideas, it allows for those situations to not be so detrimental to an overall race result. In last week's vlog, I talked about drafting in these upwind situations. This is another thing that you can use in order to make sure that those sections are not so brutal. Even in the race video here, the first 2 miles, I'm able to draft a boat much faster than me. I'm working very hard in this situation and going faster than I would by myself. So that combines together to get out of these situations. But overall, right, this is all just kind of an anecdote for you to understand some potential things that can hold you up, and then just having a strategy that helps you with that. In years past, I have not been very good at paddling fast or at a high rate with an OC1 specifically. Spending time there, trying to understand it, strategizing the movements, trying to be efficient at a higher stroke rate without burning myself out. All of these things have been the forefront of a lot of training sessions in order to make that real. And being able to put it into practice, it's very nice to receive a message saying, hey, wow, those are your strengths. And in the past, not too long ago, those were my very core weaknesses. So again, identifying what slows you down, what are you not good at, and strategizing in order to take steps forward to make your weaknesses into your strengths. Thank you guys so much for checking out the video. I hope you guys enjoy the race footage at the end. If there's any topics that you would like to see discussed, if there's any ideas that you would like to see broadcast here on the K2N Online Paddle School YouTube channel, feel free to reach out anytime via email or in the comments. Thank you all again for the support, and we'll see you all next week for the next K2N vlog episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to Lake Hernando. There's a few more people here for our event. I think we had 30 all total participants. In years past, we've had 40 or 50. So like I said, the cold was scaring some people off here in Florida. So getting on the water here, running into John Radford on accident. I thought my nose was going to clear the tail and accidentally ran into him. So a little faux pas. Luckily, it's somebody that I know. John's in a pedal surf ski. So this Aries is mine. I'm renting out to Mel, who's part of the club, and I wanted to make up for running into John by doing something cool by flying the AMA over the tail. So this is me gathering up all the troops on the start line between the white buoys that are on my right, and then I'm gonna raise my hand up and I'm gonna yell go really loud, and then everybody's gonna go. So pretty informal, pretty easy. Our timers are on land to set everything up. And here we go, and I say go. I usually try to say go and then pause for a second and then take my first stroke. That way I don't look like I get the unfair advantage by being the caller. And a couple fast boats, Jason and Chad, if you watched last week's vlog in Melbourne or paddling in Palm Bay, then you'll have seen them in the V formation at the front. So they're the only two fast boats besides myself here. I wasn't sure how some of the other tandem boats and whatnot were going to perform, but overall it was just kind of the two of them, and then I'm punching above my weight class in a sense. I'm outside of my pay grade, but this is all upwind. You can tell by the water here. It's cold. I didn't get a super good warm up. And but I did know that like the first mile and a half here is all going to be upwind, and it's kind of do or die in a sense in trying to get out of these conditions the easiest that I can. And Chad being in position here allows for me to kind of push and stay right behind him. I'm pushing at a very high exertion and he's taking a pretty measured approach, and so because of that I'm able to stay right behind him on this draft. So the draft is pulling me forward. So if he wasn't there for the same effort and output, I would end up going slower, right? So as long as I'm pushing, I'm getting this additional boost from the wake of his vessel. And like I said, it's something that I want to really focus on. There's John on the pedal surf ski, the one that I ran into accidentally. The pedal surf ski goes really fast upwind. There's nothing in the air to slow it down, like the paddles or anything like that. And all of the forward-driven operation is in the water. This is a little shortcut getting into the canal system here. And then me again following Chad from behind. So talking about cold resistance in years past, I haven't had great cold gear, right? You know, it's only cold a week or two here in Florida, and it's always on a race weekend, right? And so I'll usually show up on races with like a long t-shirt and pajama pants or something. But that's been the big difference for me, is having clothes that are, you know, very form-fitting and warm. So here's Chad pulling ahead of me here as we get into this canal system here. He's definitely the faster vessel, and I have to ease up off the gas in order to make it to the end of the race. This is near the turnaround point. This is Jason in first place making around the turn. This is the slide for the Blueberry slide. So airboats actually fly over that dam and that ramp. This is me completing the turn around the island here. And we have the 4th and 5th place boats behind me. Chad and Jason number 1 and 2, and then I'm in 3rd position here currently. And as we're going through, the C4 marathon canoe and Mark and I in the kayak went down the wrong way, and I called them to go into that canal system. Paula Lunt going into the proper direction, so she was able to overtake those boats. We got Hank and Jim here in the OC1s. They are the next OC1s that are behind me. I think they finished about 14 minutes behind me. We got Brian here in the OC1. He actually catches up to the next group of 2 guys. Continuing forward here, we have Emily, who's part of the club. She's in her OC1 Draco. And it looks like all the rear boats here are all in OC1s. We have Mel, and she's in the refurbished REs that I fixed up not too long ago. And then we have Julie, who's in her Draco as well, and I think she's rounding up the back of the crew. And so going into the canal system here, my front camera dies. I reach back and turn on my back camera, so we get a little shift. This is the other Molokai, or Maui to Molokai race jersey. I think it looks really slick. Even though I haven't done the race, it's a very high vis, cool, form-fitting shirt. So with the cold gear, again, you know, having the exact equipment to minimize how awful the cold is. The more you paddle in the cold, the more your hands get resistant to it. So I'm a little bit more insulated this year, being, you know, a little bit heavier than I have in years past, having the proper gear. Normally having really thick paddle clothing that is not designed for paddling means that you can't move as freely, which has always been a detriment to performance. So you're trying to be in heat gear that's just pajama pants or whatever, and it encumbers your movement. So having stuff that is form-fitting goes a really long way. So, and then this year, you know, everybody's complaining about the cold, and I'm toasty. I'm sweating bullets here with my, you know, gear. Coming into the finish, I wanted to go under 9-minute miles on the course, and I was able to go 8:59. I was 30 seconds behind on the final mile, but with this strong tailwind and a little sprint at the end, I was able to get the averages exactly where I was hoping for them to be. flying the AMA, coming in, just making sure that my nervous system is still functioning as we're finishing up the event here. But that is it for the blueberry slide. Thank you guys so much for checking out the video this week. We're gonna have the race results right here. I have my name highlighted so it's easy to find. And it was fairly well attended despite the cold. You can see everybody really bundled up. 45 degrees in that picture, right? So if you think that's ridiculous, please leave a comment. And we'll see you all next week for the next episode of the K2N vlog.